forgot.
I'm trying to recall whether we,
Fair number of years ago.
I just don't know.
I didn't
That's a
remember.
story that we heard. I attested
The
to that.
scuttlebutt.
I'm not sure whether we actually served there. Now, what
I
was the very
think,
short- and this is very fuzzy now.
Quite clear in
yeah,
my
here we
mind
are,
that this is-
65 years later.
Yeah, trying to figure out where we were.
Here's the story of Private Joe. He's a fella you may not
Is that
know.
me?
No, I think you were
Pride
right.
of company.
Yeah, that's me.
That's
So
it.
let me introduce him to
I'll tell you how I figured out though. How I figured out how to find you in
How do you do
in
that?
these photographs. It's because you had very, very dark hair. Dark
That's
curly
true.
hair. And so you look through the people and it's the person with dark curly hair. That's you.
See, aren't you proud of me as a hero? See?
Of course I'm proud of you.
Tell me first about my dad. What you remember about my dad on this show.
Well, what I remember about him was that he was an outstanding member of the crew, and that we depended on him, and he was the one person who we had to depend on, and he always came through with what was needed. I could identify him as the single most important member of my team. Sunday mornings, and we had small boats because, you know, we were in a place with 18 or 20 miles of land and water all around.
Well, I remember we were at church on Sunday, the 7th.
And it was a Sunday morning. And we got word somehow that Pearl Harbor had been attacked. Radio reports had come through.
And when we came back, my dad turned on the radio. We didn't have, I didn't have TV or anything. And when he turned on the radio, the president, as I remember, was,
I think it was mostly shock. I mean,
well, I was shocked too. Yeah, all of us were.
I couldn't believe it.
It was a real shock. I mean, we didn't think anything like that.
Here we are, at war, and here we've just seen our president, and now he's, having to deal with us being, bombed and.
It's a bad time. And then things really began to change because since we're now at war, they started doing things like have you pull your blinds down at night, and some of them they turned off, but, and they began to they would give you only certain number of things to get gasoline with and food. You had to have things for food and all that kind of stuff. But so it changed quite a bit. Well, you know how I got in the Navy? I was 17. And I got out of school early, and I kept thinking about I'm going to be in the Army, and the idea of pointing a gun at a guy and pulling the trigger and watching him fall. I said, forget that stuff. So I went down and joined the Navy before they drafted me.
When he realized, he was either going to be drafted or signed up, he said there was no way I was fighting in the trenches.
Well, you're looking at me as the same thing. I was a coward, let's face it. I wanted to be in the Air Force, but they wouldn't. In the Naval Air Force, but they wouldn't let me. They sent me off to school.
I was too young.
Well, they sent me off to school for a year. And I wanted to be a fighter pilot, though, but I didn't make it. So
Well, Jay Lindsay told me he wanted to be a fighter pilot. Too. They said,
I think everybody
"There weren't
did.
any
Boy, I knew this guy was a genius at taking care of things, because anytime anything was not working right, Captain Blair wanted us.
Your father, his concern was radar too, but the electronic part of it.
He was in and out and all around with anything that had to do basically with the electronics. That, and I thought, this guy's a genius.
I don't think I ever got out of my working place, Annette.
Well, you're too busy trying to fix things.
Yeah, I sure was, I'll tell you.
He's always been up here as a fellow who had an outstanding ability to do his job.
I never tell you the time somebody came and gave me a hard time. I was working on the equipment. We didn't have any. Something we could look at, any book or anything about it. So I had to do it myself, and I was taking it apart one piece by piece and laying it up like this. Well, I've been working on it almost 3 days, and this new ensign we got came in. He picked up something, moved it around. And I said something I shouldn't say, I guess. And and then he turned me into the captain. So the captain, we called me in. Don't write this to anybody, because I wanted to. He called me in and he said, "Well, I think I know what to do." He says, "You know, Chris, I need really bad, but you, I don't need at all. So, so if you don't regret that, we're going to transfer you." But he was the captain was nice.
Yeah.
I remember one guy asked me, he said, "Let's see now, you don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't gamble, you don't chase women. What fun do you have?"
Oh, shit.
What this was is we used to get off once in a while to go to an island.
Empty beer cans and
That's
some
right.
more.
And since I didn't drink,
Beer parties.
since I didn't drink,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to go
Yeah.
because of Barron, they'd raffle off my 2 beers, and I had to go. And while those guys were drinking beer, I had to drink this iodine treated water hanging from a dead tree and stuff like that. And so I didn't go after that. I said, "Nowhere, no more." Yeah. One other thing, we were in a situation one time, and this guy came up, and I was the only Mormon, at least active Mormon, and he says, "Chris, you do me a favor?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Do you know how to pray?" I said, "Sure, I pray all the time, every day." He says, "Good, well, things don't look too good tomorrow, and you're the only guy I know that knows how to pray."
So,
He said, "Would you give me a quick course?" And luckily it wasn't that bad, but we thought it was going to be, because there was all these suicide planes that come in. And then one time we got our necks saved, which is sad in a way. We were supposed to go out. What happened, towards dusk, as we were going down, they send all the destroyers out to go around Okinawa, around this island. And they're the first line of defense against the suicide
they
planes.
call them the picket.
Yeah, picket
fence,
line, that's
Picket
right.
line, yeah.
And so we were supposed to go out this time. We'd done it a number of times before, but we had a radar problem. I told the captain there was nothing we could do about it because we didn't have a part for that. We'd have to. So they shipped one out by air, but it still took a while. So the ship took our place. The next day they used to come in, after dawn, and they come in, and it didn't come in, it didn't come in, it didn't come in. Finally, real late in the afternoon, it came in being towed by a bunch of tugboats, and they just got blasted to heck and back. They took bodies off there and the place where I was at was just completely gone. And they'd lined put bodies in sacks. It was a sad deal right along the side of this walkway. There must at least been, it seemed like there were 100, but I don't know how much. Seemed like that it was.
Where were you? Do you remember when the atomic bombs
Yeah,
were dropped?
I
And
sure do.
how did you find out about that?
We were cruising along there in Japan, and we got the news somehow. We have radio and stuff that it's been bombed, and I was about the most technical guy on board, so everybody come running to me and says, "Is that possible?"
I don't think that the U.S. tried to cover it up.
No.
It was too big and too gruesome. So I think we heard about it pretty fast. And then we stopped at Hiroshima.
But we were the first people on. I'd probably tell you that, 16. But we were the first people on Japan from America.
And I took several pictures in Hiroshima.
And you couldn't believe it. It was flat. The Japanese have they didn't believe in banks and things. Each of them had a little bank in their house. Like any people did. Only it was right into the concrete and everything else, so you couldn't get out. And all you saw was these little things sticking up. There was nothing left. The whole house, everything was gone. We found the one place that didn't fall over was a hospital, and it blew all the windows out. And the rain gutters go down in Japan, and it bent all those so you could tell where it came from.
We went further back in, and we saw people living in caves. Trees were denuded with burned bark on one side where it blast itself. And yet, I'd be green on the other side.
We found a railroad car, you know, kind of around cities and stuff. It was clear out in the middle of the farms.
Everybody knew that unless the Japanese quit after the nuclear bomb, there was going to be a massive assault on the mainland of Japan. And naturally we would be a part of that group.
And they figured we would have lost well over 1 million people of our own, and probably 4 or 5 of the Japanese.
I do remember the day that the peace agreement, whatever, armistice, I'm not sure what was the proper term that was used. All the ships, the U.S. Navy ships, put up their signal flags. And I remember part of one message, WAR, over, the signal over, complete, finished.
Oh, that's
Done.
cool.
Everybody that complains about the atomic bomb, it just saved millions of lives. That's the way I look at it. It was a bum deal, but then so was anything you do in war is a bum deal.
Good for Truman, he made the right decision, which was terrible. It would be a different world if the bomb had never been dropped. So that was an interesting period after the fighting was over. There was, I don't know how to characterize the reaction of the Japanese. There was certainly no sign of hostility. I think they were reconciled.
But the first thing I did when I got out, one of the first things, was right away I wanted to see what the GI Bill would do for me so I could
Right.
learn to fly.
Good for you.
Well, I never learned to fly, but I got my licenses anyway.
And then I went home and I was really quiet for a while until I met Doreen. She was wild. She was the best looking girl in town. Go ahead, love, tell them.
His parents and my 2 aunts and uncles were in the same ward. My cousin Helen, who was a couple of years older than I was, you know, introduced me to them. And the first time that I had the date with them, my brother Howard had just gotten home from the Navy. And he said, "What? You're going out with a Navy man?" And
Big
he's a
trouble.
lot older than you are.
Yeah,
And he said, "I
3.5
don't
years.
like this."
Became best friends.
They became best friends. I left and came back to the U.
Well, she was by
Interesting.
she was by far. She had plenty of
And
offers.
pretty.
She had plenty of offers. She's very smart, nice girl. So how can you miss, right?
I was in a play. We were having a musical play. I came off stage and he handed me this envelope with the diamond ring in it.
I says, look at it this way. That's something that was very, very small. And then I put in a little magnifying glass, I remember, and I said, take a look at it through the glass, show you how the future's going to be. How's that? Pretty tricky, huh? So she came out and waved yes. So I thought, oh, well, it's pretty good.
Cool.
Unique, huh?
We've lost an awful lot of people. It got to the point where going to the reunions was not the same.